Welcome to Fearless and Focused. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Casey.
And we're here to share bold stories, real talk,
and strategies to help you push past fear and level up.
Let's get fearless and focused. Welcome to another episode of Fearless and Focus. I'm so excited, so honored for our guest today. I have to tell you, the first time that I met our guest, she was standing on a stage in front of 700 people, like a pro. Little did I know that was her very first time to ever public speak, and she was amazing and captivating. But she started out with, have you ever Googled your name? And what comes up when you Google your name, right? Because we've all done that. Like, what's up? What's on our Google, our old MySpace pages, all the things, right? And she said, well, this is what comes up when I Google mine. And there were newspaper clippings, articles, all of these things. Murder at midnight. I stabbed an intruder to save my baby. Like these wild, terrifying headlines. And then, she said, that's what comes up when you Google my name, and here's my story. And she's going to tell us her story today, not only about that crazy, tragic night that has changed her life, but all of the self-discovery that's come along with it and how that was a catalyst into something good, something that came from such a terrible tragic event into something that she has turned into helping thousands of people and many, many more, definitely me. And I'm so excited to welcome Tennyson Jacobson to the show. Welcome, Tennyson.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you on the podcast today. And not only was she on stage, she has this amazing book out that Brooke and I have dove into over the last month. And we cannot wait to share just some of the, just trainings and learnings and experiences and all this stuff. I loved reading this, Tennyson. As you know, I sent you a picture. I dove into it at the lake, and I got almost to the very end of it because I just couldn't put it down. So I'm so excited to connect with you today and just hear your story and just be inspired by you and just learn so much more about you.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you guys so much for reading it too. This is so exciting.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I mean, we always want to, show our guests in the best light, and we want to know as much as possible about them and their story and what we bring on. And I knew immediately, that I wanted to talk to you. And I didn't even know that you had a book when I reached out to you on Facebook. And then I was like, oh, this is amazing. And the book is, Mother of All Days. And it's just, I can't wait to get into it. But first, if you don't mind, would you kind of just take us back and talk in your own words, like what happened? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So it was my first Mother's Day, 2013. My daughter was 8 months old. And at the time, my husband and I were living with my mom. We were building our house. So this was the home I grew up in as a kid. Really, safe neighborhood. We're a little bit outside of Seattle, Washington. We didn't even have keys for our house. We couldn't find them and never figured to get more or get them because just nothing ever happened. And so it was, again, Sunday, Mother's Day. We had just gotten home from being gone for a few days. And at the time, my husband and I owned a CrossFit gym. So our team was always really close to potentially qualifying for the CrossFit Games. And my husband, Kyle, was basically the team captain, and he was on the team. So while we got home, he had to leave to go practice with the team. And then I was just going to pick up, spend some time with my mom, and then we'd have plans later. Well, he leaves, and within just a few minutes, I see this man walking up to our front door, which is just crazy how fast your mind processes everything because, people never walked our neighborhood. They never came up to our house. And very quickly, I realized this man isn't just going to stop at the front door. He was walking with intention and speed, and he bolted right in. He grabbed me. He covered my face. He bent me over the couch and said, "I won't hurt you. I just want money." And Thankfully, I had money, which I never have money, which is just crazy. But there were just all these little things that were happening that just didn't seem right. And so, like, even when he was waiting for me to get the money, uh, I had this huge diaper bag stuffed with like onesies and diapers and bottles and formula and all the things. And so it took a while to find my wallet. And I was like, if
Mm.
he just wanted money, wouldn't he just take the whole bag? And so he waits for me to find the wallet. I find the wallet, and it's one of those zip wallets, so he's waiting for me to unzip the wallet, find the cash. I'm like, well, wouldn't he just take my wallet? And so he's waiting through all of this. And eventually I hand him $41 and he lets go of me. He had held me by the ponytail, and he looks at me, and these eyes were just like black. It was like I was looking in another world. I've never seen anything like it except for in the movies. And then he smacks me super hard. I fall down, and he walks, not runs. He just turns and walks away. So there were all these little things that just didn't really feel right. And I call the cops. My husband comes home, and I just had this feeling, he's coming back. He's coming back. And I was really nervous to tell the cops because you just sound crazy. And of course, you're scared and terrified. And many of them, I think at least 3 of them, told me in one form or another, in 30 years of experience, nobody's ever come back. Of course, we don't have a crystal ball, but they never come back. And so 12 hours later, we go to bed that night. And of course, this is fast forwarding a lot of stuff, but we had 2 little dogs. They never found him. They even had like dogs sniffing for this scent. I think even like a helicopter was looking. Like there was a 4-hour search for this guy. So I go to bed that night terrified. I'd just been attacked in my home. And had this weird feeling. And at 1:30 in the morning, we had 2 little Yorkies that slept with us. And I usually took them out to go to the bathroom because I'd get up with our daughter, but there was no way in heck I was going outside. And so I woke up my husband, can you take the dogs out? And he takes the dogs into the hallway, and they start growling as soon as they enter the hallway. And he turns to quiet them. And he sees this man at the end of the hallway who just immediately walks exactly like he did towards my husband. So just big, giant steps immediately towards Kyle, and starts, fighting. And I had told my husband, we always slept with a baseball bat and wasp spray on the side of our bed. That was our home defense.
Mhm.
And I had told him to take the baseball bat. But he went to bed that night not worried at all. Like he totally is a trust the professional kind of guy. He literally went straight to sleep, which was slightly annoying. I was like, what? But when I told him to take the bat, I think he knew I would fight him if he didn't take something. So he grabbed the wasp spray, which was now on his side of the bed. And so anyway, when this guy starts walking towards him, he sprays the wasp spray at him. That just pisses the guy off. And that immediately starts this fight for our lives, really. And thank God my husband is, we own a CrossFit gym, so a pretty fit guy. He's a firefighter and able to, he's faced trauma before, and he's able to remain calm under pressure. And then he also was a wrestler. He was a wrestling coach after. And so all of these combining factors, coupled with knowing probably this is the guy that attacked me earlier, fueled this fight. And so they started fighting, and I could hear commotion, and I immediately knew what was happening. So I ran out. I grabbed the bat that I had asked him to take. It was this solid wooden Louisville Slugger bat, adult size bat. And then, I ran out. I slammed the bat on this guy's back. Kyle had got him into headlock, so his back was nice and wide open. The bat breaks, which I'm like, what the like, what? I'm small, and I know I was like
Superhuman strength.
stronger for my size, but like this is crazy. And so I thought of like taking the jagged, broken edge, like, oh, do I stab this into his back? I'm like, I can't do that. There's no way. So then I start kicking him in the balls, like his hips are up. So it's literally a perfect shot. And I had sprained my ankle from when he hit me before and I fell. So I try my left foot and it's just pathetic. I grab the wasp spray I see that fell to the ground. I'm spraying that in his eyes. Like nothing is happening. The
Nothing is
guy is
working.
just
Yeah.
slowly army crawling Kyle, trying to bite him and break his fingers and grab his balls. And then eventually, Kyle, which I've never heard in my life before at this point, says, Tenny, I need help. And for Kyle to say that is clearly making a point that he's just never asked for help. And it was this like light switch that went off in my brain. And so I ran to the kitchen and I grabbed, we had two big kitchen knives and I made sure to grab both of them. One sucked, one was a sturdy knife. So I made sure that I had the sturdy one. And then I came back. And by that time, my mom had come out. She had heard the commotion. She was on the phone with 911. And so I go back and I start stabbing this guy. And I stabbed him 7 times in the back. And then Kyle let him fall to the ground and he was like, Tenny, stop. And I stabbed him again in the stomach. Kyle knew he had passed. And yeah, it became this, in an instant, your world is flipped upside down with complete trauma and fear and a lot of layers that unfold after that as the cops come and start investigating. But yeah, that is the event.
Mm.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Does it feel like when you share your story and say it over and over, does it feel like it was just yesterday, or has there been some distance in between, or does it just feel like you're just reliving it? It was just yesterday.
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. It kind of does feel like just yesterday, but then it also feels so long ago. But I've told the story so many times that I do think sometimes I get numb to it. And I know that it is a shocking story. So I still struggle knowing how to share it because I think I told you guys before, like, I feel like I'm this wrecking ball that comes in and people are like, what? And I've triggered people before and that feels awful. But no, I've done a lot of work and I've told it so many times that it doesn't, trigger me to share it. But yeah, there's a lot of layers that I think of in sharing it too.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard you on stage, obviously, and I just had tears running down my face the entire
Mm,
time and seeing you and see how brave you are and everything you've come through. And then hearing it again now, like I noticed how clenched my jaw was. I literally was
mm,
just sitting here clenching
mm,
because I'm reliving it with you, right? And just I can't even imagine the aftermath,
mm,
and what all that looked like and felt like, and the terror. Like you were afraid to go to sleep when he left, and then you come and this happened, and you end up having to stab him to death to save your family. And but then you're so traumatized and doing something you didn't even know you could ever do. You're like,
mhm,
I can't stab this guy with a bat that I broke over his back. But when you heard Kyle say, like, "That gets me every time," like, "Tenny,
mhm,
I need you." Oh, I mean, that triggers me into, like, oh my god, like, I can just see my husband and, like, what that's like and, like, you as a
mhm,
family were just fighting for your lives,
mhm.
and I just yeah, I just feel for you every time you say it. Thank you
Mm,
for sharing.
of
Um,
course.
so tell us a little bit, about after.
Mhm,
Um, I think, Casey and I talked, and she mentioned, the courts, that you didn't actually go to
mhm.
court, right?
No, yeah. So immediately after, the cops come and I it's just so interesting. I think it was probably pretty clear that it was self-defense. And then they had the call from 12 hours prior that somebody broke in and he had actually he had this trucker hat that fell off when he bent me over the couch. So I had this piece of evidence to give them from the first event. But even when they got there, I'd be curious to talk to the police officers and detectives now, like what it was like showing up to the scene and what they thought. But like, I was so terrified this guy was going to like crawl back up to life and start attacking us. And so was my husband, like, because so many things had failed up until the point of having to stab him. And so even when they come into the house, they've got their guns drawn. And like, I'm the one that just did what I did. And I'm like, point your gun on the guy, like what are you doing? And so I think it was pretty clear how Kyle and I were reacting, that this was total self-defense. But what immediately happened is detectives come and we were sectioned off. We had to eventually give statements. And even when the detective pulled me into her car, and I share this in the book, as I'm put in the front seat. And so I'm never handcuffed. Like, I'm treated with such kindness and respect that like it didn't ever occur to either of us that we were technically arrested for murder. Even when she's reading me my rights, she was like, so I have to just go through protocol. Like, I'm going to read you your rights. And then I share about how she then after pulls out her business card and asks me to write down a book that she wants me to read, which is the book, The Gift of Fear. And so she's giving me help and support and advice in this moment. And so we were so taken care of, which was so, I mean, just, I don't even know the words to explain, just truly has meant the world to us. But yeah, from there, we had to go to the hospital because we had open wounds and there was a lot of blood. And so we were exposed to potential infectious disease, which I didn't even think about. And that terrified me. This guy he smelled like nothing like I've ever smelled in my life before. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like he probably has something. That feels really judgmental to say, but like he was just so dirty and so disgusting and so petrifying.
Wow.
And then we had to figure out where to live, and we moved in with Kyle's parents. We slept in their bedroom for 3 months. And the detective would basically just call and check in. She'd come over, she'd give us updates, and we never had to go to court. She did whatever she did on her side to basically make sure it was never on our record. Because, and I don't know the word, I think we talked about this before, but like, if she didn't do what she did, we would still have to go to court and plead guilty. And so like, if I had an application, I'd have to say, yes, I've been charged with a felony, but no, I'm not guilty, which that would be awful. So, yeah, it kind of just fell away because it was so obvious, with the evidence that it was total self-defense.
Wow. So take us through some of the starting through the healing process. Like, how do you get from that and trauma and all of that? And how did you slowly start getting through the healing process? What did that look like?
Yeah, it was so complicated and it's taken so many years. Immediately, and it might have even been the detective that told us this. We were advised to go to Harborview Trauma Center in Seattle, which is like, that is the place in Washington you go to for trauma, not just like physical trauma, but like, exposure to PTSD and stuff like that. And so we kind of just fell in line with what we were recommended to do. So at first looked like going there, which we had to do their protocol, not protocol, but their practice was exposure therapy, which is basically exposing yourself to what terrifies you the most so that you can eventually
Sounds
have
terrifying.
yeah, especially like, I don't know if that's like for say snakes. I have a fear of snakes. Okay, that would be so terrifying. But to like, for me, it was sitting in a room alone. So I'd have to go sit in a room after just everything that had happened. And then for my husband, he had to stay up later than everybody else in the house alone. And then like at night, like at 10 o'clock at night, walk from the front door to the mailbox in pitch black. Like after all of it, like it was just the worst therapy ever. But that was the only tool that we were given by our therapist. And so I will say, after a little bit of time, it did help a little bit. And so there were these glimmers of hope. But every day, I mean, I was just so paralyzed with fear and anxiety. And, you know, my in-laws' house is a very small house. And so to go to the bathroom, like you go from the living room down the hall, you pass like a closet door, a bedroom door, and then there's a bathroom. Like every door you pass, you expect that somebody's going to jump out and attack you. And then you're done going to the bathroom and you are like, I'm scared to open this door. Like, what if somebody's outside? And so then I'd crack the door open, peek outside, make sure it's okay. And then there's like 3 other doors that I needed to be aware of. And going to bed, like every little sound you hear is triggering you to think that somebody's on the roof, somebody's climbing outside, somebody's walking down the hallway. And so there was just so much anxiety that, you know, it's true, the body keeps a score. Like I had no tools to figure that out. And so then I was advised to go to the doctor. I got on Xanax pretty quickly. And then not long after that, I was, somebody recommended seeing a psychiatrist because, you know, day after day after day of like, and you're not sleeping. And so you get up and you're like, okay, it's daytime. I know I'm going to I walk down the hall, going to the grocery store, couldn't even do that alone for a while. So you finally get through the day and then you're like, oh my God, tonight is going to be awful. And then you relive it all over again. And so eventually went to a psychiatrist. He told me I was depressed and I needed antidepressants, which was like, I'm like Miss Holistic, essential oils, like all, like everything natural. So I couldn't believe my path led to that. And then we tried other therapists, couples therapists who worked with people who've been through trauma. So we did it together, which was actually really cool and beautiful. And then we had an amazing community who showed up for us so deeply, and we were so loved. We were so supported. And so over a couple years, things did start to get a little bit better. There were certainly some lows I share in the book and a lot more experiences. But eventually I got to a place where I'm like, I have anxiety, I have nightmares, but maybe this is just what life looks like after you go through something like we went through. And then it wasn't until I was asked to be a guest on a podcast from Tony Blauer, who, I mean, he is internationally known for his work in self-defense. And I knew him through had heard of him through the CrossFit community. And he offered to come teach one of his seminars at our CrossFit gym, which was incredible. He didn't really do that anymore. He had a team that did that. And so we met, we connected. He was so supportive and genuinely just there for Kyle and I, however he could. And so he had asked me to be on his podcast. And he asked me to share the event. And we talked about intuition and fear, because that's a lot of what he teaches is fear management and understanding intuition. And at the end of the call, he could see how many struggles I still had. And he knew a therapist that he deeply respected and asked me like, hey, would you be willing for me to connect you with this therapist I know? And I was like, oh my gosh, anybody you want to connect with me with, I will talk to you. Even though like I didn't really think I had major issues, I clearly did. But I had gotten so used to living that way that I was like completely unaware there was a better way. And so Jeff and I had a call, and within the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh my God, this guy is, I know, I felt seen. I felt understood. Like he was putting words to what my internal experience was that nobody else had told me. And you start to feel crazy, or like, why can't I just like not think about it? But when he explained to me the nervous system and like how trauma impacts the brain and all these things, I was like, oh my gosh. And so we started working together, and which was amazing. You know, he had such a full list of clients, and really first tackled the nervous system. And as that calmed down, that started cracking these other doors of different moments in my life before this big event that were like, oh, this is kind of running my life a little bit. There's parts of me being a perfectionist, a high achiever, all these other layers that started to come up. And that slowly, you know, now I've been working with him for 7 years. That really started this journey of healing and then self discovery ultimately.
Yeah. And I know that, I've shared this with you, but as you talk through all of this and how your nervous system was just in a state of just constant, I told you how, like, I feel this way with my son. He has terrible anxiety. Like, I've dealt with anxiety my entire life, panic attacks. So all the things I can totally relate with you. But
Yeah.
when it comes to my 12-year-old son, it's like, how can I take this away? I'm like,
Hmm.
you just go to the ends of the earth to try to fix things for them. And, he'd been in therapy for, a while. And I was like, maybe it just takes longer. I don't know. I just don't feel
Hmm.
like there's this it's not bad, it's helped a little, but then he started to go backwards, and just my gut was, like, telling me, like, "You need something else. He needs something else." And reading your book, and hearing you say, "I did this exposure therapy, I did all this, I took Xanax, I took dep" and none of it was working, and
Hmm.
then I found Jeff
Hmm.
and things shifted. And in that moment in that book, and I told you, I sent you a text and I was like, oh my gosh, like this for my son, like, that it was my, like, I am changing. I'm going to find, that's my moment as a mom. Like, I know I'm trusting my gut and my intuition that this isn't right for him. And I'm going to find something that is. We start a new therapist later this month. And I already, after talking with him, kind of like your Jeff moment, I'm like, "Oh, please," because everything that this therapist is saying is on the, like, I just feel like this is gonna be so good for him, more in tune with what he needs, can be more connected to him and get him past, because every night, every single night, I know what's gonna play out. And
Hmm.
last night, I mean, we come home from the lake, it's fine because we're all sleeping in this small condo. We go to his room that's on the other side of the house, and we say prayer, I go to bed, and I lay there with my eyes open, and I wait because I
Hmm.
hear him come across,
Hmm.
and that is just living that way in constant fear. It has to be so exhausting. And I
Hmm.
know that you said in the book, you said you got to a point, you were just so exhausted. You're like, I don't know if I can ever feel better.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, and I know that my son is like, he has so much life, and but he's got to be so exhausted, and he's like,
Hmm.
I'm wondering, like, does he think that this is it? And so I
Hmm.
know that there's something better for him. And
Hmm.
so thank you for that, like, saying, "Hey, you can try a million and one things. If it doesn't work, you try something else. Like,
Hmm.
you will find your path."
Yeah.
And you found yours, and I'm hoping this will happen and it's given me hope for my son that he's gonna find a path to relax his nervous system. So
Well,
I
that's
just
the biggest compliment, Brooke. Like you know, you think of when you're writing the book, I was so scared to do this. 'Cause I'm like, will anybody care? Like, well, does this even make a difference? You know, I'm getting emotional thinking of this, but like to hear you be able to take that
yeah,
away, and you
yeah,
already knew, but so, like that's the thing about trusting your gut and intuition is it's often scary and terrifying and takes a lot of freaking courage, you know, because we really don't talk about that too much in our world. And so it's truly the biggest compliment to hear that. And I'm so hopeful for you guys too. You'll totally find it. It just sometimes takes a while.
right.
Oh.
I know. And well, and one of the things, and you touch on this a little bit in your book, that your dog Ludo.
Mm,
And so we've been thinking about getting Jack's adopt. My oldest son leaves in 2 years. And of course, I'm already like fast forwarding, like, when my older son's gone, then he's really going to be scared. Like, how can we do this? And, if you don't mind, can you tell a little bit about, like, Ludo? I know, like, your dog was a big part of your healing journey too.
Yeah.
Like, I've been dying to find out.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, like I've almost finished the audio recording of this. That chapter is the only chapter I cry. Like the last two sentences, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to re-record this. But there's still a little bit of tears in there. But yeah, so Kyle working for the fire department. I mean, they just showed up incredibly for us. But one of the things they did is somebody knew, one of the firefighters knew a trainer who trained like attack dogs. Like Schutzhund is the sport of protection. And so this trainer had Belgian Malinois, German Shepherds, and he was in law enforcement for decades, and then has now all these protection dogs for sport and wins all these awards. And so he asked if he could connect us to him to potentially get a dog. And we were like, oh my gosh, because we had learned that a dog is now one of the biggest deterrents for, intruders. And so we had these little Yorkies, but like now living and paralyzed with so much fear, like the thought of a dog that could actually potentially do something was the most, like, I'm going to say the word exciting. Like it gave us so much hope and peace for that. And so he connected us to this trainer, and the trainer brought out 3 dogs, not like options for us, but just to show what they could do. And 2 of them were Belgian Malinois. And it was really clear those dogs were just too high energy. We weren't going to be able to keep up with that. And then the third, his personal dog, Kitos, he brought out, and Kitos was a Dutch Shepherd, and Kitos melted right into our laps, even though he was this level 4, like psycho crazy dog that could kill you. And so Kitos wasn't, for sale, but less after he left, he called and was like, hey, you guys need this dog more than I do. If you want him, he is yours. And we were blown away. But after getting Kitos, we had him for probably 6 months. It was clear, like hanging out around a property and just with a baby wasn't meeting his needs. And so the trainer repaired us with a dog, and that was Ludo. And Ludo had been with a family. I think they had an autistic child. And I don't know why it didn't work out. I think they were maybe moving. And so we got Ludo, and Ludo is just, I'll get emotional. The best, he was the best. When I had my son, baby day home, he just licks his face, and he was this perfect blend of like barking and protection, but like loving, and just like, he was a dog, the kids walk over the grandparents and he's just trailing behind them, not in an aggressive, but just in a subtle way.
Right.
And so he really made the decade after this event, especially with Kyle going back to work and me staying alone again, if it weren't for Ludo. And not just the protection layer, you speak to like, for your kids, and like this sense of like anxiety or like, and they do really provide something, unconditional love and protection and all those layers, that just it's intangible and it's unforgettable. And he was just the best. It's gonna be really hard to feel like he passed away a couple years ago. And so it's been hard to even figure that out ever since, but now we have a Bernedoodle.
Another human.
Yeah. Well, we got another German Shepherd, and he was like too crazy. And he wasn't good with dogs, aggressive. And so anyway, but yeah, that's Ludo.
Well, that's hilarious that you got a Bernedoodle, because I kid you not, that's what Jax wants. Crazy.
There you go. She's so sweet. The kids are in heaven. So yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So can we take a little bit of a turn and dip into some of my favorite topics to talk about, the woo-woo space, which sometimes people relate, but share a little bit about how you've incorporated that and how that's really like that's even like added to your healing journey. I went and so last week after we talked, the day after, no, it was the same day, I went and had this chakra rebalancing. So, I mean, you're just in this amazing room and you just feel so safe and secure. And then they just like they walk you through this guided meditation and just working on every chakra. And it was just it like almost felt like I just walked in there and plugged myself into a electrical outlet. So I
I love that.
recharge all the batteries, and
Mm.
I walked out of there like feeling so recharged. So tell us about some of the stuff that you've experienced and how that's helped you heal.
Yeah, so I'd say the first layer to that is this intuition piece, with the experience and feeling like I knew he was coming back, like that woke me up to intuition. And because, I was the only one that saw him, like I had all these feelings. I'm like, whoa, like I clearly was picking up on something that nobody else saw because they weren't there. And so I only understood intuition from a sense of like safety fear for several years. And then it wasn't until like owning now my insurance agency and hiring employees and me thinking like, I don't know, something's off here. But then my mentors saying, no, I think like this feels like a good fit. And then I started to see intuition play out, not just in safety, but in my everyday life. And that was simultaneously happening while I'm, working with Jeff. I'm working on my nervous system. And as you do regulate your nervous system and get more grounded, and uh, like that just allows you to connect deeper with your intuition. So that was kind of the start of it. And then I, excuse me, I listened to this podcast and she talked about making 2021 her year of curiosity. And as soon as I heard her say that, every light in my body went on. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, 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 yes. Like I wasn't a New Year's resolution kind of gal, but I love this idea of being able to follow what I was curious about. And it might have aligned because I was already so now interested in intuition and starting to see it play out in my life. And I really do think curiosity is the door opening to what your intuition is leading you to. But there were so many things that like I was curious about that I just didn't give myself permission to do, especially in this more like, and I hate even calling it a woo woo world because that feels disrespectful, but like I know that's what people do refer to it as, but like um, so I made this agreement with myself because by that point, I saw intuition playing out in my life. I knew what happened when I didn't listen to it. I knew what kind of did when I did listen to it. And so I made a little commitment to myself like, I am making this year my year of curiosity. And in order to, hold myself accountable, like I'm going to do anything that I'm curious about, I can afford, and that doesn't negatively impact others. And so I just started following this gal and listening to what she was doing. And it was all things that I was so curious about too, because she was just having these breakthroughs and huge realizations. And the first one was human design, which I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing and so interesting. But again, I was like, I have some like Christian traditional religion thoughts in my background. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, am I going to hell for doing this? Like, am I awful? Like, am I a bad person? But I was like, no, Tenny, you committed to yourself. Like, if you're curious about it, you can afford it and it doesn't impact others negatively, you're doing it. And so that was really my first toe in the water as far as this woo woo stuff. And like, from the first moment of the call, again, just like with Jeff, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And for 2 hours, this complete stranger reflected back to things to me that like, Jeff, obviously I learned so much about myself through him, but like this was a different layer of it. It was her telling me like, okay, Tennyson, like you need to like no shoulds. If it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no. And so I could immediately think of things I was doing in my business that I'm like, oh, I should call this person or I should be doing this more. I'm like, no, like that's not a line for me. And so it's all these little nuggets that like I had just never heard anywhere else that blew my mind. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, this following your intuition and curiosity thing is amazing. And so then I did an Akashic record reading, which that felt even more like, woof, like, what am I doing here? Because you prepare questions for like your spirit guides and angels. I was like, what am I doing? Like, people are going to think I'm bananas. but I was curious about it. I could afford it, and it didn't negatively impact others. And so even getting on that call, it was just this woman who, to me, she's like the ultimate like mother energy, like just so kind and warm and loving. And that provided different insight around things. And so I started to have these experiences with these healers that like everybody I met was just so warm and loving and supportive. And you didn't need to talk about like where you fall short on things. It was all like seeking to get you in alignment with your most authentic self. And so, as somebody who had been such a people pleaser and struggled really being my authentic self because I thought of all these other layers, it was a message and teachings that I desperately needed. And it was fun, you know? Um, so yeah, the Akashic record, and then I eventually end up in Sedona, which is, you know, the last couple chapters of the book, where I met with a bunch of different healers doing different things. Hand
I'm dying.
analysis
I'm
session. It was
dying
so
to do
cool.
it. I'm
Yeah.
dying to go.
So
When you
I
did
was
that
telling
and
Brooke, I went to Sedona, and I think was the Sedona Soul Retreats?
Yeah. No, Sedona Soul Adventure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I did the same exact thing. I was
Mm.
telling Brooke, I was like, I did this experience in Sedona, and you went and you met
Yeah.
different healers. And I said, within a year coming back, I had sold all three of my agencies and moved.
Oh my gosh.
Just like this crazy, whirlwind of everything. But I feel like when you just set out on a journey of self discovery,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like, okay, here's the step. Are you going to take it or not? Okay, here's the next step. Are you going to take it or not? And so,
Yeah.
do you kind of feel like, because I'm the type of person that's like everything has learning and meaning, and do you kind of look back and have some type of, because I'm always like, why did this happen? Why did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
So are you able to, through your healing, look back and be like, oh man, I think this is exactly why this happened, because it really led me to, lean in more to my intuition and learn more about myself. Have you got there yet? Or do you like relate it to it all?
Oh, 100%, a million percent. I think it probably only clicked for me when I started to have the nudge to write the book, because I was like, okay, I see that our experience and some of my learning with Jeff and just working through it, because people were telling me like, this is a pretty big event. Like a lot of people don't come out quite how you and your husband have. But then it was leading me to all these other things. And I could observe in my life. Now I see people's nervous systems, I see their parts, and you can start to see these things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, things I've learned. If I could just share that with others, like that's the silver lining of all of this. And I think even just going into the woo-woo world, there's somebody talked about like your soul's purpose. Like we all have this purpose that we come into life with. And obviously there's incredibly traumatic things that happen with loss of spouse and kids and parents. And how do you ever reconcile that? I don't even know. But I think I can see the learnings from being so committed to heal from this, that if I could just share that with others, then that is maybe my unique purpose. And so, yeah, I do for sure.
yeah, I love how, in the book, and you're like, I started reframing, my anxiety and, like, and turning it what ifs, right?
Mm.
What's the worst that could, and like, and back into it. Like you kind of went through the worst that could happen, right? Like, and so now, like, well, what if this does work out? Well, what if this does help someone? And I know like you internally, all of this, like your gut and your intuition was telling you things like, no, he's coming back. This isn't working. I need a new therapy. I'm going to lead into the curious. Something else is out there. You didn't know what, but you kept leaning into it. And
Mm-hmm.
all of this turned into, healing from the trauma. And then you went on a self discovery journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's leading you to, helping others. And I know that you've said many times, like the purpose of this book, you're like, I don't even know if anybody will read it or
Mm-hmm.
care or what. But I truly think like this is like, yes, like your purpose of the, like what you've brought to the world because of what you've been through and all the therapy that you had to go through and leaning into things that you were hoping to make you feel better or figure out who you were. So is so relatable to so many people. Um,
Mm.
on so many levels, I'm like, are we sisters? Can you see in my brain? Like, this is, I just connect with you on such a deep level. I've only met you in person one time,
Mhm.
and one of those what ifs was when you stood on stage and you told your story.
Mm. Mhm.
I had happened to be sitting like when you're talking on stage, you usually find a couple people, and like those are kind of your point people. And I think I was like in the view because I was like, she's looking right at me. She's looking right at me. So I have to meet her. And I was like, tears in my
Mm.
eyes and just telling you, like, thank you for sharing your story. And that's going to help so many people. And wow, you're such an inspiration. And, that was 3 years ago. And I'm reading the book and then you share it and you're like, and these people came up and I'm like, I like stopped dead. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, Tennyson, that was me. I was one of those people. I was one of those people that came up and you're like, yes, I was waiting for you to get to that in the book. I was like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
and then, but so was that the first like step of like, okay, I did this huge, crazy big thing because public speaking is like one of the biggest fears people have, right?
Mm.
Like stepping into now I'm going to do podcasts. Now I'm going to start my own podcast. Now I'm going to write a book. And now here you are written this amazing book.
Mm.
Kind of one of the first steps.
No, so the podcast I did came before that, which that was my first nudge, like, Tenny, you need to do a podcast. Because so the big thing in sharing our story is there was a TV show called Your Worst Nightmare, and they asked to do an episode of us. We were like the season premiere of season 3, I think. And the episode is the full event, and it ends with literally just, a couple hours after killing the guy. We're standing in the kitchen holding a cup of coffee, and the cops are like, okay, well, he's not going to come back. And then they have Kyle and I, our actors, like smile at each other, and then the show ends. I'm like,
Not
what?
really.
Like, that's where everything began. And that
Right.
really bothered me because I mean, I don't watch true crime already, but I'm like, gosh, the real inspiration for what people, how we have hope and how we learn and how we grow is getting to see people's journey after. And that was, people have told me, oh, you're so brave for what you did. I'm so proud of like the things I'm the most proud of myself for in being brave are the little moments that nobody else saw. And I knew that those are the moments we all struggle with.
Mm.
And so those are the moments that I wanted to share. And I think that's what makes the story relatable to you, even though we have different experiences, is it doesn't matter what trauma you've gone through in your life. We've all experienced something. And I really do believe the root of those feelings are universal: pain, shame, grief, sadness, frustration. And so when I could share those really real feelings, hopefully the reader can connect and feel seen. And that's what I wanted. And so anyway, the podcast was the attempt to share where I was at that point. And I had only been working with Jeff for a couple of years at that point. And then when I was, in the insurance program that you were in, I had this nudge. He's going to ask you to speak. He's going to ask you to speak. I could see him asking me. And I knew that I was like, yes, this is your opportunity to kind of first share with people on stage. So I was terrified, but I also knew that my intuition was leading me to do that. And then I loved how you came up to me, and I texted you this later because even through, eventually then I'm like, all right, Tenny, it's time to write the book, which I was scared to do. And I held on to the moment of you coming up to me. Like, you sought me out, Brooke, to like, I don't even think you waited in line when I was giving out books, The Gift of Fear. Like, you came up to me in my seat, told me how you had tears in your eyes and like how much impacted you. And that was such a moment for me of like real, genuine authenticity of connection through me sharing my story. And I held on to that through the book journey. And I told you that because you doubt yourself so many times when you're trying to do something so vulnerable and so public too. And so I held on to that like remember, like Brooke connected. So I really thank you for doing that. And I know that's a scary thing to do for a lot of people. So I admire you for doing that too.
Oh, well, I meant it. And, and the whole purpose, like, even if you help one person, it's worth it. Right.
Mm,
So, like, I was like, I have got to go tell her. I know how big and I can't imagine. Like, I just know, like, standing on stage talking about insurance. Like, I can't imagine standing on stage talking about such a, incredible event, and then the aftermath and everything that's going on. I was like, I have to go tell her, like, how much she impacted me, and
mm,
how many, even on different trauma levels, because I had been in similar like, total different. My husband had a brain tumor.
mhm,
You had to kill an intruder. Same trauma.
mhm,
No one's trauma is worse than, you don't know how that affects that other person. But I could relate from that trauma to your trauma, and how
mhm,
seeing you come through it, and knowing I was still dealing with things, because that was 2 years into my journey with what was
mhm,
going on with my husband, and how our life was turned upside down, and all the PTSD that came along with it. And he's fine now, right? And
mhm,
but our lives are totally different. And just, I just, it's an amazing thing to meet you. And I just feel like, you know, you're leaning into your gut, into your intuition, and telling people, like, hey, you know, this is, if you feel it, go for it.
mhm,
And every time I have felt it, that I've gone for it, has never let me down. And, like, I'd be
mhm,
like, I knew it. Or, like, if I
mhm,
leaned it, but I didn't lean into it, and, like, man, I knew it. I should have. Okay, next
mhm,
time I'm listening to that girl inside me.
mhm.
But thank
Yeah.
you for that. Well, I have to ask, because I know you have done so much healing and so much self discovery. Like, what does it look like with you and Jeff now? We didn't get into that a lot. Like, save it for the book. Y'all read about Jeff. He's amazing. He did the
Mhm.
foreword. But what does that look like now?
Yeah, we still talk most Sundays. I talked to him yesterday. It was Labor Day, so it was, we didn't talk on Sunday, but yeah, and it was interesting, even reflecting on what we were talking about, because you really do grow and evolve and change. And maybe I like the nightmares aren't a part of my life as much anymore, but now I'm walking through, like, my dad was diagnosed with dementia, and I'm walking through new things, and I'm walking through tension in my agency that I didn't feel when I first started with him. And so I'm so grateful for him so he's always like, we're talking next Sunday, we'll talk to you next Sunday. Um, yeah, so and there's still parts of me that I am, um, trying to heal. To be totally transparent, the part that we talked about yesterday is this part of me. I started to notice in my agency that, like, I wasn't as confident as I used to be, and I've been tripping over my words way more than I ever did. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I've said the same thing for gajillion years, gajillion times. What is going on? Is something wrong with my brain? Am I, like, I started worrying. And so we started trying to explore, like, what part of me is this? And I really realized how much, being in the insurance world the last 18 months was so volatile and
Mm,
so
mhm.
hard. And so, you're going in every day because people's rates have doubled and getting canceled. Like, people are upset every day, and you're answering those calls, you're answering those emails. And so for 18 solid months, it
It
was that
affects
every
you.
day.
Sure.
And you in the beginning, I'm like, I got this, I know this is going to be tough. And it wears on you, because I would just hold space for these people to, they talk about their rates, but then it's all the other woes of the world, because you're eventually a voice or an ear to listen. And I started to realize the part of me, like, and I couldn't necessarily help their premium that much. I could do a little, but I can do a lot. And this feels like such a cheesy example, but the part of me that has showed up that's been tripping me over my words is this part that worries if my words have value. Because for 18 months, they didn't feel like like people valued my help or anything. And so that's what we were working on yesterday. And I'm still trying to work on being present. I still have anxieties and worst case scenario thoughts that come into my mind. And Jeff has really kindly told me, like, this is probably always going to be a part of you. But so there's always something to work on and to chat through. So it's not every week we talk, but we certainly are still connected pretty consistently.
Wow.
Well, you are amazing, Tennyson. Just talking with you just this little bit, I just feel so connected. And you know what I love about you is that you're in the insurance industry, like Brooke and I, and you know it's a very black and white world most of the times. You know, you got to fit in this box, you got to show up professionally, and you know all this. Like, don't show a lot of emotion. Like, you know, just kind of be almost like at times, like in my agency, I felt like almost like a robot chained to my desk at times. But what I love about you is you started to dip into this self discovery and journey and intuition and these different tools that the normal, you know, black and white insurance agent doesn't really talk about. And that you're bringing that into this industry. And I love that so much. I remember when, after I sold my agencies, I was starting to do some retreats and I was having agents fly in from across the country to do these retreats. And not I would tell them, you know, like focus on the result, you know, you're going to feel more confident, you're going to feel have more clarity. But I remember I specifically did not say like you're going to go through a healing session with, you know, Holly Van Gilder, and she's going to tap into your intuition and she's going to clear. You know, I wouldn't tell them the modalities because I almost felt like if I tell them the modalities that they're going to experience being in this insurance industry, nobody's ever going to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just so amazing to like bring them into a space and show them different ways to grow and learn and add that into your agency. And it's not crazy and it's not woo. It's like really, I feel like what we're all supposed to evolve into. So I love so much that you're being a voice for this in the industry and just sharing your story and your message. And I just believe that, you know, you're just going to help so many people and inspire them.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope so.
You are, girl. You are on your way for sure. Well, thank you so much for the time that you spent with us. We always end our podcast with a question. So this is a loaded one for you,
Oh
especially.
boy.
Yeah. But what does being fearless mean to you?
Oh, fearless. Yeah, fear has been my big kicker the last 12 years. So I don't think that we're ever completely without fear. You know, fear is an important part of our physiology. Is that the right word? You know, we've got our little amygdalas, as I write, that's sensing fear all the time and just trying to keep us safe. And it does that for a reason. And I think being fearless is having the courage to trust your intuition, that, you know, because often what your intuition is guiding you and nudging you towards is scary. It's maybe the path that somebody else wouldn't take, or, you know, it looks a little bit different. And I think having the courage to trust your intuition is being fearless. And immediately I thought of fearless as like, rah, rah, like I got this. But I don't think it's that. I think it's subtle, quiet courage to trust yourself. And yeah.
Oh, I love that. I've never heard it explained that way. Absolutely love that so much. Well, where can people follow you and find you and tell us about your book, The Mother of All Days? Where can they get the book so they can read? Tell us how everyone can connect with you.
Yeah, so Instagram's the best place to follow along. I'm still trying to put myself out there more. But my name, Tennyson Jacobson. And then, I mean, book wherever books are sold, but Amazon's probably the easiest. So, yeah, I would love to have people read. And it's so, as I if I could just say, to provide feedback or thoughts. You know, at the end of the book, I have my email address, and even or you can DM me, but it truly means the world to hear from people and their experience or their thoughts or anything. Like, that is the reason why I did it. So I invite people to share if they, you know, have anything that comes up, because that means the world. So
I love that. I know, like, I'm the same, like those affirmations of I could relate with that, or that helped me, or that
Mhm.
impacted me, or thank you for making me feel less crazy or less alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's my love language too. So we always invite people on, at the end of the podcast, please, message us, reach out,
Mm.
read the book. We're going to be giving away, we're buying a couple books.
Oh, I love it.
We're going to be giving a couple books away. If you DM us, send us a message, tag us, something that this podcast made you feel a certain way. Please let us. We will send you a copy of this book, The Mother of All Days by Tennyson Jacobson. It was an amazing, amazing book. I will cherish forever. Thank you
Mm.
so much for sharing this time with us and sharing your story with the world, and doing, your part to, you know, make the world a better place, make people feel less alone and
Mm.
connected, and just to, keep going, and lean into what, lean into the fear that if it's going to make you
Mhm.
feel better, and that fear that's your intuition and your gut, because we all have it for a reason. So
Yes,
thank
we
you so
do.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Tennyson.
Thanks for tuning in to Fearless and Focused. Remember, success is not about being perfect. It's about showing up, staying bold, and taking action.
If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration.
Keep chasing your dreams, staying fearless, and keeping your focus strong.
Until the next time, stay
Fearless and focused.